In the enormous whale belly of steel and stone carved out to form the long-enduring old opera house, Rick Deckard found an echoing, noisy, slightly miscontrived rehearsal taking place. As he entered, he recognized the music. Mozart's the Magic Flute. The first act and its final scenes, the Moor slaves, in other words, the chorus had taken up their song a bar too soon, and this had nullified the simple rhythm of the magic bells. What a pleasure! He loved the magic flute. He seated himself in a dressed circle seat. No one appeared to notice him. It made himself comfortable. Now Papageno, in his fantastic pelt of bird feathers, had joined Pamina to sing words which always brought tears to Rick's eyes, when and if he happened to think about it. Alright, I'm not doing that. Well, Rick thought in real life no such magic bells exist that make your enemy effortlessly disappear. Too bad, and Mozart, not long after writing the magic flute, had died in his 30s of kidney disease and had been buried in an unmarked pauper's grave. Thinking this, he wondered if Mozart had any intuition that the future did not exist, that he had already used up his little time. Maybe I have too. Rick thought as he watched the rehearsal move along. This rehearsal will end. The performance will end. The singers will die. Eventually, the last score of the music will be destroyed. In one way or another, finally, the name Mozart will vanish. The dust will have won. If not on this planet, then another. We can evade it a while as the Andes can evade me and exist a finite stretch longer. But I get them, or some other bounty hunter gets them. In a way, he realized I'm part of the form-destroying process of entropy. The Rosen Association creates an ion make, or anyhow, so it must seem to them. On the stage, Papageno and the Pamina engage in a dialogue. He stops his introspection to listen. My child, what should we now say? The truth, that's what we will say. Leaning forward and peering, Rick studied Pamina in her heavy convoluted robes, with her wimple trailing its veil about her shoulders and face. He re-examined the poop sheet, then leaned back satisfied. I have now seen my third Nexus 6 android, he realized. This is Luba Luft. A little ironic, the sentiment her role calls for, however vile, active, and nice-looking an escaped android could hardly tell the truth about itself. Anyhow, on stage, Luba Luft sang, and he found himself surprised at the quality of her voice, irradiated with that of the best, even that of notables in his collection of historic tapes. The Rosen Association built her well, and he had to admit, and again he perceived himself sub specie atratus, whatever that means, the form destroyer called forth by which he heard and saw here. Perhaps the better she functions, the better a singer she is, the more I am needed. Android has been, if the androids had remained substandard like the ancient Q40s made by Durain Association, there would be no problem and no need of my skill. I wonder when I should do it, he asked himself. As soon as possible, probably at the end of the rehearsal. When she goes to her dressing room at the end of the act, the rehearsal ended temporarily. It would resume. The conductor said in English, French, and German in an hour and a half. The conductor then departed. The musicians left their instruments and also left. Getting to his feet, Rick made his way backstage to the dressing rooms. He followed the tail end of the cast, taking his time and thinking it's better this way, getting it immediately over with. I'll spend a short time talking to her and testing her as possible. As soon as I'm sure, but technically he could not be sure until after the test. Maybe Dave guessed wrong on her, he conjectured. I hope so, but he doubted it. Already instinctively his professional sense had responded, and he had yet to err throughout years with the department. Stopping a super, he asked for Miss Luce's dressing room. The super, wearing makeup and the costume of an Egyptian spear carrier, pointed Rick, arrived at the indicated door, saw an ink-written note tacked to it reading Miss Luft, private, and knocked. Come in, he entered. The girl sat at her dressing table, a much hand-led cloth-bound score upon her knees and marking here and there with ballpoint pen. She still wore her costume and makeup except for the wimple that she had set down on its rack. Yes, she said, looking up. The stage makeup enlarged her eyes, enormous and hazel. They fixed on him. I did not waver. I am busy, as you can see. Her English contained no remnant of an accent. Rick said, you compare favorably to Schwarzkopf. Who are you? Her tone held cold reserve, and that other cold which he had encountered in so many androids. Always the same great intellect, ability to accomplish much, but also this. He deplored it, and yet without it he could not track them down. I'm from San Francisco Police Department, he said. Oh, the huge, intense eyes did not flicker, did not respond. What are you here about? Her tone oddly seemed gracious. Seating himself in a nearby chair, he unzipped his briefcase. I have been sent here to administer a standard personality profile test to you. It won't take more than a few minutes. Is it necessary? She gestured towards the big cloth-bound score. I have a good deal I must do. Now she had begun to look apprehensive. It's necessary. He got out the Voight-Kampff instrument, began setting up. An IQ test? No. Empathy. I'll put on my glasses. She reached to open a drawer of her dressing table. If you can mark the score without your glasses, you can take this test. I'll show you some pictures and ask you several questions. Meanwhile, he got up and walked to her, bending, pressed the adhesive pad of sensor grids against her deeply tinted cheek. In this light, he said, adjusting the angle of the pencil beam. And that's it. Do you think I'm an android? Is that it? Her voice had faded almost to extinction. I'm not an android. I haven't been on Mars. I haven't never seen an android. Her elongated lashes shuddered involuntarily. He saw her trying to appear calm. Do you have information that there's an android in the cast? I'd be glad to help you. If I were an android, would I be glad to help you? An android, he said, doesn't care what happens to another android. That's one of the indications we look for. Then, Miss Lu said, you must be an android. That stopped him. He stared at her. Because you can do, your job is to kill them, isn't it? You're what they call, she tried to remember, a bounty hunter, Rick said, but I'm not an android. This test you want to give me, her voice now had begun to return. Have you taken it? Yes, he nodded. A long, long time ago when I first started with the department. Maybe that's a false memory. Don't androids sometimes go around with false memories? Rick said. My superiors know about the test. It's mandatory. Maybe there was once a human who looked like you, and somewhere along the line you killed him and took his place, and your superiors don't know. She smiled as if inviting him to agree. Let's get on with the test, he said, getting out the sheets of questions. I'll take the test, Lublu said, if you'll take it first. Again he stared at her, stopped in his tracks. Wouldn't that be more fair, she asked. Then I could be sure of you. I don't know. You seem peculiar and hard and strange. She shivered and smiled again. Hopefully you wouldn't be able to administer the Voight-Kampff test. It takes considerable experience. Now please listen carefully. These questions will deal with social situations which you might find yourself in. What I want from you is a statement of response, what you do. And I want the response as quickly as you can give it. One of the factors I'll record is a lag time, if any. He selected his initial questions. You're sitting watching TV and suddenly you discover a wasp crawling on your wrist. He checked with his watch, counting the seconds, and checked too with the twin dials. What's a wasp? Blue Wolf asked. A stinging bug that flies. Oh, how strange. Her immense eyes widened with childlike excitement as if he had revealed the cardinal mystery of creation. Do they still exist? I've never seen one. They died out because of dust. Don't you really know what a wasp is? You must have been alive when there was wasps. That's not only been... Tell me the German word. He tried to think of the German word for wasp, but couldn't. Your English is perfect, he said angrily. My accent, she corrected. It is perfect. It has to be. For roles for Purcell and Walton, Vaughan, Williams, but my vocabulary isn't very large. She glanced at him shyly. Wesp, he said, remembering the German word. Yes, in Wesp. She laughed. And what was the question? I forgot already. Let's try another. Impossible. Not again a meaningful response. You are watching an old movie TV, a movie from before the war. It shows a banquet in progress. The entree. He skipped over the first part of the question. Consists of boiled dogs stuffed with rice. Nobody would kill and eat a dog, the blue said. They're worth a fortune. But I guess it would be an imitation dog or Strauss, right? But those are made of wires and motors. They can't be eaten. Before the war, he grated. It wasn't alive before the war, but you've seen old movies on TV. Was the movie made in the Philippines? Why? Because Louis they used to eat boiled dog stuffed with rice in the Philippines. I remember reading that. But your response, he said, I want your social, emotional, moral reaction. To the movie, she pondered. I'd turn it off and watch Buster Friendly. Why would you turn it off? Well, she said oddly, who the hell wants to watch an old movie set in the Philippines? Whatever happened in the Philippines except the Bataan Death March, and would you want to watch that? She glared at him indignantly. On his dials, the needle swung in all directions. After a pause, he said carefully, you run a mountain cabin? Ja. She nodded. Go on, I'm waiting. I'm an area still verdant. Pardon? She cupped her ear. I don't ever hear that term. Still, trees and bushes growing. The cabin is rustic, knotty pine with huge fireplace. On the walls, someone has hung old maps, courier, and eyes prints, and above the fireplace a deer's head has been mounted, a full stag with developed horns. The people with you admire the decor of the cabin, and I don't understand. Courier or Ives or decor, Lubilu said. She seemed to be struggling, however, to make out the terms. Wait, she held up her hand earnestly. With rice like in the dog. Courier is what makes the rice. Courier, it's curry in German. He could not fathom for the life of him if Lulu's semantic fog had purpose. After consultation with himself, he decided to try another question. What else could he do? You're dating a man, he said, and he wants you to visit his apartment while you're there. Oh, nine, Luba broke in. I wouldn't be there. That's easy to answer. That's not the question. Did he get the wrong question? But I understand that. Why is a question? I understand the wrong one. Aren't I supposed to understand? Nervously fluttering, she rubbed her cheek and detached the adhesive disc. It dropped to the floor, skittled, and rolled under the dressing table. Ach Gott, she muttered, bending to retrieve it, a ripping sound, that of cloth tearing her elaborate costume. I'll get it, he said, and lifted her aside. He knelt down, groped under the dressing table until his fingers located the disc. When he stood up, he found himself looking into a laser tube. Your questions, Lulu said in a crisp, formal voice, began to do with sex. I thought they would finally. You're not with the police department. You're a sexual deviant. You can look at my identification. He reached toward his coat pocket. His hand, he saw, had again begun to shake as it had with Polakov. If you reach in there, Lubulu said, I'll kill you. You will anyhow. He wondered how it would have worked out if he had waited until Richard Rosen could bring him. Well, no use dwelling on that. Let me see some more of your questions. She held out her hand, and reluctantly he passed her sheets. In a magazine, you come across a full-color picture of a new girl. Well, that's one. You become pregnant by a man who promised to marry you. The man goes off with another woman, your best friend. You get an abortion. The pattern of your questioning is obvious. I'm going to call the police. Still holding the laser tube in his direction, she crossed the room, picked up the vidphone, dialed the operator. Connect me with San Francisco Police Department. She said, I need a policeman. What are you doing? Rick said with relief. Is the best idea possible. Yet it seemed strange to him that Luva had decided to do this. Why didn't she simply kill him? Once the patrolman arrived, her chance would disappear, and it would all go his way. She must think she must think she's human, he decided. Obviously, she doesn't know.